The iPad is celebrating its 10th anniversary, believe it or not. And even since it was announced, we've been heralding the idea of a post-PC world. But there are still a lot of PCs in use, right, David?
There sure are.
All right, so you did a fun little study here just recently for us to find out just how many PCs folks are actually using on a regular basis. So tell us, what did you find here?
All right. So the idea behind this was it was just curiosity, really. And I wanted to find out how many PCs and Macs, desktop computers with keyboards and mouses, or laptops with keyboards and mice that people were using. And I wanted to differentiate that from, iPads and tablets and servers and IoT. I'm talking about traditional computers. So many of us work from home, as do I, and I use 6 computers. I jump between the machine I'm using now, which is the big studio Mac Mini. I've got 2 couch Macs, believe it or not, one on the big screen and one on the side, which I installed when I needed to work on my thesis and the puppy wouldn't let me work in my office. A Mac laptop for on the road, a PC laptop that I use for testing, and because why not, I have a Mac in the bedroom as well. And the idea here was, am I, well, I'm going to say, well, I am an oddity, but, am I an oddity in this characteristic? Are there a lot of people who use more than one computer, or is the general premise that people use just 1 or 2 computers really accurate? And so that's where this began.
And well, first of all, I love that you did have to get a separate one because of the puppy who was probably loud and wouldn't leave you alone. All right, so tell us, how did you go about conducting this study?
So I did it very informally. I asked the ZDNet editors. There's a bunch of us that work together, and I asked our ZDNet editors, and then I posted it on the Twitter feed. So we're talking really scientific here.
I like that. And you did find it some surprising results. What'd you find?
Yeah, I did. What I found out first was how many of our editors use Macs. I had always assumed that most of the folks at ZDNet were PC users, but of the contributors who weighed in, there were 22 Macs in use, 11 Windows machines in use, 3 Linux boxes, and a couple of Chromebooks.
All right, so what about how many per editor? What'd you find there?
That was kind of interesting. 2 of us use 6 machines. 1 of us used 5 machines. 4, including my wife, used 3 machines. 4 ZDNetters used 2 machines, and 3 of them managed to get by on only 1 machine. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of use, and you can look at that kind of as an interesting base, because these are people who are doing it for work. These are generally professionals. Many of them work from home. And you've got a spectrum ranging from 6 machines on a daily basis to 1 machine on a daily basis. Not at all what people expect. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of world.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. And you even learned some stuff from Twitter, correct?
I did. I gave my readers a choice of 1 machine, 2 machines, 3 machines, or 4 or more machines, because Twitter has this really neat survey option, which I can't resist, and it'll give you 4 choices as a question. So I asked my followers, gee, how many do you have? Well, the biggest group used 2 machines. That was almost 40%. The second biggest group was at 25%, used 3 machines. That surprised me, because I really figured that the majority of the general public was going to have maybe a desktop and a laptop at most. But the second biggest group used 3 machines. More than 1 in 5 of my Twitter respondents use 4 or more machines on a regular basis. And at the bottom, just slightly more than 15% are people who use only 1 computer. So the idea that this is a post-PC world where people aren't using computers, at least in terms of the Twitterverse, and at least in terms of people who follow a tech columnist, most of them use well more than 1 computer.
Yeah, and I would have definitely thought 2, maybe 3 would have been my thought going into this. All right, so the burning question here, David, is why does this matter?
Well, I mean, first off, it doesn't. I mean, in terms of my purpose initially was curiosity. When you write columns on a daily basis, you're always looking for interesting things to explore. But there are actually practical components to this. For example, Office 365 licenses 5 machines per subscription, while Creative Cloud only licenses 2. From what this little piece of research did, it tells me that most people who buy Creative Cloud are going to be upset that they only have 2 licenses, while most people who buy Office 365 will be just fine with 5. It also affects things like how we look at the interaction and keeping those machines in sync. Because if a lot of us are switching between machines, we want to have the tools that manage our resources as we move back and forth, whether that's Dropbox or Google Drive or Apple's Drive or any of those sorts of things, ways to keep our files in sync, ways to keep our settings in sync, and so forth. And so as we build our optimal workflow. So it does go to the interesting question of, well, it's not one computer per person in most cases, and that means we have to build workflows and work environments that optimize the fact that people jump between machines.
Yeah, and I think it's just interesting too. It's just fun to find out how other people operate. And what they're doing in their home office or at work, all that good stuff. All right, well, some really cool information there, David. Thank you so much for telling us about that. And if you want to find out where you fit in, make sure you check out David's full article on ZDNet. Thanks for watching.